It was Saturday evening. The sun had just set over the horizon, painting the sky in that uncertain twilight where you can't decide whether to turn on your headlights or not. Mark Evans didn't have to make that choice. He was just pulling into his garage on a quiet residential street in Sharpsburg. A moment later, a slender, dark-haired man emerged from the side door, carrying a duffel bag, a briefcase, and a laptop. Years of travel had made him efficient, moving like a man who'd packed and unpacked 1,000 times before. He unlocked the door to the house and stepped inside. He didn't call out to his wife, Lisa. He already knew she wasn't home. Setting his things down in the living room, Mark placed his garment bag at the foot of the stairs, then carried his coat to the closet near the front door. He hung it neatly on the familiar rack. Now free of his luggage, he loosened his tie, unbuttoned the top of his crisp white shirt, and exhaled. He didn't usually dress so formally, but today he'd returned from a regional meeting of managers at ABC Industries. He wasn't technically a manager, but as the most knowledgeable systems analyst on staff, he was expected to attend. His supervisor, organized but clueless about technology, relied heavily on Mark. He could have stayed in Pittsburgh for the night, but that wasn't part of his plan. He had told Lisa that the meeting would be followed by weekend seminars and that he'd be home Monday. That was a lie. He had his own reasons for coming home early, and he needed time to make sure everything was in place. He'd even regretted not bringing comfortable clothes, but if he had, Lisa might have asked why. He always packed only formal wear for business trips. Now that he was home, his first order of business was simple: shower and change. 20 minutes later, he came downstairs refreshed, wearing jeans and a polo shirt. He looked relaxed, cleaner, calmer, almost at peace. He spent the next half hour warming up leftovers from the fridge. Lisa was a good cook, and even cold, her meals tasted like home. He sat down, ate quietly, and washed it down with a bottle of premium light beer, one of his few indulgences. When the meal was done, Mark reclined in his favorite chair, a worn-out lazy boy, and unfolded the local newspaper. To anyone looking through the window, he was a normal man, just another husband unwinding after a long trip. But that wasn't true. Inside, Mark was waiting for the right moment to face his crisis, one that had haunted him for weeks. He'd already gone through the first stage of grief: denial. Anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Those still waited for him. He hoped that tonight he could finally move through a few of them. Hours passed. The clock ticked quietly. And when midnight came, Mark finally stood up. He took his empty beer bottle to the kitchen, rinsed it, wiped the counter spotless, almost obsessively. He knew he was stalling, giving himself one last chance to turn back. But deep down, he already knew he wouldn't. He walked to the closet, put on a light jacket, and moved toward the side door. His fingertips touched the doorknob. Then he stopped. "Damn," he muttered. "Almost forgot." He hurried back to the living room, set his briefcase on the coffee table, and opened his laptop. Within seconds, he had logged in, connected to the home Wi-Fi, and began typing. A quick email, something he'd meant to do earlier. A few clicks later, he sent it, logged out, and shut the laptop down. He took a slow breath, turned off the lights, and walked out the side door. In the garage, the sound of the car engine broke the silence. Moments later, the garage door opened, and Mark Evans drove out into the night. As the door closed quietly behind him, the neighborhood returned to silence. 37 a.m. Sharpsburg 911 received a new call. "This is your 911 emergency operator. What's the nature of your emergency?" A shaky, young-sounding female voice came through a bad connection. I think I need the police. I think a crime has been committed." "Where are you located, ma'am?" the operator asked calmly. "We need your location." "I'm on Park Drive, a payphone near George Washington Park." The operator frowned. That explained the poor reception. "What crime has been committed, ma'am?" "Were you attacked?" "No," the woman said quickly. "It wasn't me. I was running through the park, on the paved access road to the picnic area. There's a car parked there. The doors are open. The lights are on, and there's blood. A lot of blood," the operator straightened. "Will an ambulance be needed? Any injuries?" "No, no one was there. At least, I didn't see anyone, just an empty car and blood. I was afraid someone might come after me, so I ran here to call. You did the right thing, the operator reassured her. Police units are on their way. Please wait for them so you can point out the location. There was a pause. Then the woman's voice returned, more frantic. No, I'm not waiting here. What if whoever did this comes back? A click. The call disconnected. The operator sighed, staring at the flashing caller ID on the screen. Damn, probably a prank, she muttered. Hope I didn't just pull a patrol off something real. It was nearly 2 in the afternoon that Sunday when Detective Peter Nesbitt arrived at George Washington Park. The call had come through early that morning, but Nesbitt had learned not to rush a crime scene until the forensics team cleared it. The area was taped off. A few onlookers had gathered at a distance, whispering. The car, a dark blue sedan, sat under a cluster of oak trees, doors still open, lights long dead. The ground beneath the driver's seat was stained a deep brownish red. Blood. A lot of it. Detective Nesbitt stood quietly for a moment, taking it all in. He'd seen plenty of crime scenes before, but something about this one felt personal. No body, no weapon, just the eerie stillness of a half-finished story. Whose car? He asked one of the uniformed officers nearby. Registered to a Mark Evans. Local address, about 15 minutes from here. Wife? Yes, sir. Lisa Evans. They own a home on Oakwood Street. Nesbitt nodded. Let's pay her a visit. The front door opened slowly when the detectives knocked. Lisa Evans stood there, pale, holding a coffee cup that trembled in her hand. She looked like she hadn't slept all night. Mrs. Evans? Yes. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I'm Detective Nesbitt, Sharpsburg PD. May we come in? She hesitated, then stepped aside. Of course. Is this about Mark? The detective exchanged a quick glance with his partner. You've heard from him recently? Lisa shook her head. Not since Thursday morning. He said his company meeting would run through the weekend and he'd be home Monday. Why? Has something happened? Nesbitt took out a small notepad. Mrs. Evans, is this your husband's car? He showed her a photo from the park. The blue sedan, the open door, the empty seat. She gasped, one hand flying to her mouth. Oh my God, yes, that's his car. What happened? We found it early this morning, Nesbitt said evenly. Parked near the picnic area in George Washington Park. There were traces of blood inside. We don't know yet whose. Lisa's cup slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. She didn't even flinch. Blood? You mean Mark's hurt? We don't know, the detective repeated. There's no sign of him. The car wasn't stolen, no sign of forced entry. But we'd like you to come down to the station to give a statement. She nodded weakly, still staring at the photo. Oh God, Mark. Later that afternoon, Lisa sat in a small interview room at the station. Her hands were clasped tightly, knuckles white. Detective Nesbitt sat across from her, calm but focused. Mrs. Evans, was your husband under any unusual stress recently? Lisa hesitated. He's always been a bit private, but lately, yes. He seemed distracted, nervous even. I thought it was work. Did he mention anyone following him? Arguments? Problems with co-workers? She shook her head. No, nothing like that. Anyone who might want to hurt him? Again, she hesitated. Then she whispered, No, but we've had some tension lately. Nesbitt leaned forward slightly. Tension? Lisa swallowed. He thought I was seeing someone? The room went silent. Were you? Her eyes flicked to the table. No, at least not anymore. It was a mistake. Something that happened once months ago. He found out somehow. But we were trying to move past it. Nesbitt scribbled something in his notebook. And he left for his business trip 2 days after that argument? Yes. Did he seem angry when he left? No, she said softly. Just quiet, cold, like he'd already made up his mind about something. When she was finally released, Lisa drove home in silence. The house felt emptier than ever. Mark's briefcase still sat on the coffee table. The laptop was gone. She didn't notice that at first. It wasn't until she bent to pick up a piece of the broken coffee cup from the morning that her eyes landed on the faint ring on the table's surface, the mark where a computer once rested, her. Heart sank. She walked to the study, opened the desk drawer, and found the family flash drive missing too. A chill ran down her spine. Whatever happened that night, Mark had planned it. Across town, Detective Nesbitt sat at his desk, staring at the forensic report. Blood type O negative. Mark Evans's medical file said the same. It wasn't looking good, but something about the case kept gnawing at him. There were no footprints, no drag marks, no struggle, just an empty car, a puddle of blood, and a missing man. Too clean, too deliberate. He leaned back in his chair and muttered to himself, "You didn't vanish, Mark. You wanted us to think you did." It was late evening when Detective Nesbitt's phone buzzed. The caller ID read Forensics Division. He picked up immediately. "This is Nesbitt. Detective," the voice on the other end said. "You're going to want to see this. We've recovered digital fragments from the park surveillance servers. They're grainy, but you'll get the idea." "I'll be right there." Within 20 minutes, Nesbitt stood in the darkened analysis room, watching the footage. The timestamp read 11:43 p.m. The night Mark Evans disappeared. A car drove into the frame, the same blue sedan. It parked near the picnic area, lights still on. The driver's door opened. Mark Evans stepped out, looked around, then walked to the back of the car. A few seconds later, he opened the trunk, pulled out something, a small backpack, then disappeared into the woods. He never came back. Nesbitt frowned. "So, no attack? No second vehicle. He walked away on his own." The technician nodded. "That's what it looks like. The blood in the car. We think it came from a self-inflicted cut. Shallow, controlled. Someone wanted to make it look violent." Nesbitt felt the realization hit him like a quiet explosion. He staged it. The next morning, he returned to Lisa's house. She answered the door, exhausted but alert, as if she hadn't slept since their last visit. "Mrs. Evans, we need to ask you a few more questions." She nodded and let him in. Nesbitt glanced around. The living room looked unchanged, except for one thing. The briefcase was gone. "Did you move something from this table?" he asked. Lisa frowned. "No, what do you mean?" "There was a briefcase here yesterday." She blinked. "No, there wasn't. Not when I got home." The detective sighed. "Mind if we take a quick look around?" Lisa hesitated but nodded. "Go ahead." They searched the house. Nothing. No laptop, no flash drive, no documents. Every trace of Mark's work was gone. That's when Nesbitt noticed the faint indentation in the carpet near the study desk, where a small safe might have once sat. "Did you keep a safe here?" he asked. Lisa turned pale. "Yes." "Mark's. He kept personal papers in it, but it's missing. He must have taken it before he—" She stopped herself. "Before he disappeared," Nesbitt finished quietly, "or before he made himself disappear." Later that afternoon, Nesbitt sat back at his desk, going through Mark's digital records. Bank transactions, company emails, credit cards, all normal. Until 2 weeks ago, that's when a transfer appeared. $10,000, sent to a private account in another state. The name on the account, James Miller, a fake identity. Nesbitt ran a cross-check. No criminal record, but the passport photo on file looked unmistakable. It was Mark Evans, with a beard and dyed hair. He leaned back slowly, exhaling. "You sneaky bastard." 3 days later, the call came. A used car lot in Tucson, Arizona. A blue sedan with a matching VIN number had been found abandoned in the desert. Clean, dry, and wiped of prints. When the local police dusted the vehicle, they found one faint trace under the glove compartment. A smudge of blood. DNA confirmed the match. Mark Evans. Lisa sat across from Detective Nesbitt one last time. She looked older now, her voice hollow. "So he's alive?" "Yes," Nesbitt said. "He's alive. Or at least he was 3 days ago. We think he planned this for weeks. The cut, the car, the scene, all of it designed to make it look like a violent abduction." She closed her eyes. "Why would he do that?" Nesbitt studied her face carefully. "I think you already know." Tears welled up in her eyes. "He found out about the affair?" "Yes, and instead of confronting you, he erased himself." Lisa whispered, "He wanted me to live with it." Nesbitt nodded slowly. "That or he wanted freedom. He cleaned out one of your joint accounts, just enough to start over, but not enough to be noticed right away. My guess? He's somewhere new now. living under that alias. Lisa buried her face in her hands. Oh, God, Mark. The detective stood. If it's any comfort, he didn't want revenge. Just distance. He paused by the door. When someone disappears like that, they're not trying to punish anyone. They're trying to breathe again. Weeks passed. The official case file was closed. Missing person, voluntary disappearance. Lisa sold the house and moved away quietly. The neighborhood forgot. But Detective Nesbitt didn't. One evening, months later, he received an unmarked envelope at the station. Inside was a single photo, a man sitting at a seaside cafe, wearing sunglasses and a small smile. Next to him, a notebook. On it, 2 words written in pen. Don't look back. Nesbitt stared at the photo for a long moment. Then he folded it neatly, slipped it into his desk drawer, and turned off the light. It was Saturday evening. The sun had just set over the horizon, creating that strange twilight where you can't quite decide whether to turn on your headlights or not. Mark Evans didn't have to make that choice. He was already pulling into his garage on a quiet residential street in Sharpsburg. A moment later, a slender, dark-haired man stepped out from the side door, carrying a duffel bag, a briefcase, and a laptop. Years of travel had made him an expert at juggling multiple items like this. He unlocked the door to his house and walked inside. He didn't call out to his wife, Lisa. He already knew she wasn't home. Instead, he placed his bags in the living room, neatly stacking the briefcase and laptop on the couch. He hung his coat on the familiar rack by the door, loosened his tie, and finally undid the top 2 buttons of his crisp white shirt. Mark didn't usually wear formal business clothes, but today had been different. He'd just returned from a regional managers meeting for ABC Industries. Technically, he wasn't a manager, but as the company's top systems analyst, he was often required to attend. He could have stayed an extra night in Pittsburgh, but that wouldn't fit his plan. So he told Lisa there would be a weekend seminar, that he'd be gone until Monday. It wasn't true. But Mark had his reasons. After a quick shower and a change into jeans and a polo shirt, he warmed up leftovers from the fridge. Lisa was a great cook. Even her leftovers tasted good, and washed them down with a cold, premium light beer. To anyone watching, Mark looked like an ordinary husband winding down after a long business trip. But in truth, he was waiting for the right moment to face something he'd been avoiding for weeks. He'd gone through the first stage of grief, denial, but anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance still weighed heavily on him. Tonight, he hoped he'd finally move through them. By midnight, the house was quiet. Mark tidied up the kitchen, dishes in the dishwasher, countertops wiped clean, but he knew he was only stalling. There was no avoiding what came next. He slipped on a light jacket and walked toward the side door. His fingers brushed the doorknob. Then he froze. Damn, he muttered. Almost forgot. He hurried back to the living room, powered on his laptop, connected to Wi-Fi, and quickly sent one last email. Then, shutting everything down, he walked confidently out to the garage. 5 minutes later, his car pulled out into the night. The garage door closed silently behind him. Hours later, at 7:37 a.m., a 911 operator in Sharpsburg answered a new call. One emergency. What's your location? A frightened young woman's voice came through, barely audible. I think I need the police. I think a crime's been committed. Where are you, ma'am? The operator asked. I'm on Park Drive, near George Washington Park, at the payphone. What happened? Were you attacked? No, it wasn't me. I was jogging through the park, and there's a car. The doors are open, the lights are on, and there's blood. A lot of blood. The operator straightened in her chair. Is anyone hurt? Do we need an ambulance? No, the caller whispered. No one's there. Just blood. I got scared and ran. You did the right thing, said the operator calmly. Officers are already on their way. Please wait for them. I can't, the woman stammered. What if the person who did this comes back? Then, click. The line went dead. Later that afternoon, Detective Peter Nesbitt stood in the driveway of the Evans home as a blonde woman pulled in. She got out of her car, suitcase in hand. Mrs. Evans? The detective called out. Yes, I'm Lisa Evans. Can I help you? He showed his badge. Sharpsburg Police. We're looking for your husband, Mark Evans. His car was found abandoned this morning in George Washington Park. Lisa blinked, confused. That can't be right. Mark's in Pittsburgh for a work seminar. He always leaves his car at the airport. I'm afraid not, said Nesbit. The license plate and VIN match, she frowned, thinking. Then it must have been stolen. Possibly, the detective said. But there's more. Could you call him? Just to confirm he's in Pittsburgh? Of course. She pulled out her phone and dialed. Moments later, a ringtone buzzed from inside the detective's jacket. He pulled out a cell phone. Mark's cell phone. Lisa stared in shock. How did you get that? It was found on the floor of your husband's car, Nesbit said gravely. The vehicle contained a lot of blood. Lisa's face went pale. Oh my God, you think he's hurt? We don't know yet. That's why we need to search the house. Within the hour, detectives and forensic techs swept through every room. They collected Mark's laptop and briefcase, along with DNA samples from his razor and toothbrush. When asked for Mark's laptop password, Lisa whispered, "Try his name and birth year, Mark 1971. It didn't work. The computer would need to be cracked by forensics. By evening, they'd also found blood on the pedals of Lisa's car. It matched the blood from the park. Lisa burst into tears. That's impossible. I wasn't anywhere near that park. Detectives exchanged glances. Something didn't add up. The following day, the results came in. The blood. Lisa sat frozen on the couch. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. Detective Nesbit's words echoed in her mind like a gunshot. Your husband's last email was sent to Blake Moore. Finally, she whispered. There must be some mistake. Detective Klein slid a printed copy of the email across the table. Lisa's trembling hand picked it up. The subject line read, I know everything. Her eyes widened. She started to read aloud, voice cracking. Blake, I trusted you. I brought you into my home, and now you'll pay for what you've done. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I swear I don't know what this means, she said softly. I didn't even know he was back in town. Detective Nesbit folded his arms. Mrs. Evans, when was the last time you saw your husband? 3 days ago, she said, before his so-called business trip. He kissed me goodbye and said he'd call when he landed in Pittsburgh, but he never did. Did you try to contact him? Yes, I called, I texted, I even emailed him. No reply. I thought he was just busy, Nesbit nodded. And Blake Moore. When did you last see him? Lisa hesitated. Yesterday afternoon. He dropped by to return some tools Mark lent him. That's all. The two detectives exchanged a look. That silent language cops used when they both thought the same thing. Something wasn't right. Later that evening, police arrived at Blake Moore's home. The man opened the door calmly, still wearing his golf shirt and khakis. Mr. Moore, Nesbit said, we need to ask you a few questions about Mark Evans. Blake frowned. Mark, what about him? His car was found abandoned. There was blood inside, a lot of it. Blake's eyes widened. My God, is he... We don't know yet, Nesbit said evenly. Mind if we come in? Blake stepped aside. Of course not. The living room was spotless. No signs of struggle, no blood, nothing out of place. But what caught the detective's eye was a small framed photo on the mantel. Mark and Blake fishing together. And Lisa standing between them, smiling. An hour later, Nesbit asked, Mr. Moore, how would you describe your relationship with Lisa Evans? Blake looked confused. We're friends. Mark introduced us years ago. Nothing more? Klein pressed. Blake laughed nervously. You're kidding, right? She's my best friend's wife. Nesbit leaned forward. Then why did Mark send you this email the night he disappeared? He slid the same printout across the table. Blake read the first line and went pale. I don't know anything about this, he whispered. Mark must have misunderstood something. Like what? I don't know. Maybe he thought Lisa and I were close, but we're not. Then where were you last night between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m.? At home, Blake said quickly. Alone, watching TV. Klein wrote something in her notebook. Convenient. No witnesses. The next morning, the forensics team processed Blake's truck. No blood, no signs of cleaning agents. Spotless. Too spotless. But then, in the corner of the truck bed, a single dried droplet of blood. DNA confirmed it. Mark Evans. Detectives got a warrant for arrest. Lisa was at home when the news broke. She turned on the TV and gasped as Blake's face appeared on screen. The reporter said, "Local man arrested in connection with the disappearance of Mark Evans." She dropped the remote. Tears welled up again. But this time, something was different. Fear. Moments later, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A distorted male voice whispered, "You shouldn't have called the police." Click. The line went dead. Her heart pounded. She backed away from the window, trembling. Later that night, Detective Nesbitt sat at his desk reading the report. But something kept nagging at him. The blood pattern in the car. Too small for a fatal wound. No body, no struggle. No trace of Mark anywhere. He called his partner. "Klein, what if we're wrong?" "Wrong about what?" "About Mark being dead." Klein paused. "You think he staged this?" "Maybe. Think about it. He fakes a business trip, sends a threatening email, leaves his phone behind, and disappears. What if Mark Evans planned this himself?" The next day, a park ranger found something deep in the woods, half buried under a tarp. A duffel bag. Inside, a set of clothes, a wallet, and a passport. Name Mark Evans. Detectives rushed to the scene. But the forensics team made one chilling discovery. The fingerprints on the passport didn't match Mark Evans. They belonged to Blake Moore. Detective Nesbitt stared at the report in disbelief. Blake in custody. Yet his prints were found on the fake passport. Was Blake covering for someone, or had Mark framed him completely? Lisa was brought in for one final interview. Her face was pale, eyes hollow. "I just want to know," she whispered. "Is Mark alive?" Nesbitt sighed. "Honestly, Mrs. Evans, we don't know. But we're starting to think he wanted everyone to believe he was dead." She blinked. "Why would he do that?" The detective leaned forward, voice low and serious. "Maybe. To punish you." The police station buzzed with low chatter. Detective Nesbitt stood by the evidence board, staring at a photo of Mark Evans. Every clue, the blood, the car, the fake passport, led in circles. No body, no closure, only questions. Klein entered the room holding a manila envelope. "New forensics report just came in," she said, setting it on the desk. Nesbitt opened it. His eyes widened. Inside was a grainy photo, captured from a gas station security camera near the state border. The timestamp, 2 days after Mark disappeared. And there he was, Mark Evans, alive, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, pumping gas into a silver sedan. Nesbitt exhaled sharply. "He's alive," he muttered. "He played us all." Meanwhile, Lisa Evans sat alone in her darkened living room. Her phone buzzed with messages, reporters, neighbors, friends, but she didn't answer any of them. She just stared at the framed wedding photo on the mantel. Her smile in that picture felt like it belonged to someone else, someone who hadn't destroyed her marriage. She whispered to the empty room, "Mark, if you can hear me, please, come home." A soft ding broke the silence. An email notification. Lisa opened her laptop. The subject line read, "Do you miss me?" Her hands trembled. She clicked. "Lisa, I warned you." "You lied to me. You betrayed me. Now you get to feel what it's like to lose everything. Don't look for me. You won't find me." Lisa covered her mouth, sobbing. He was alive, and he was watching. Detective Nesbitt and Klein drove to the gas station from the photo. The clerk remembered him. "Yeah, guy paid cash. Didn't say much. Asked for directions to Route 19 heading south. Any idea what car he was driving?" Klein asked. The clerk nodded. "Silver Hyundai. New plates, no dealer frame?" They checked nearby traffic cameras. The same car appeared heading toward the West Virginia border. And then, nothing. No record, no trace. It was as if Mark Evans had vanished again. A week passed. Then, one morning, a package arrived at the Sharpsburg Police Department. No return address. Just one word written on the label, "Justice." Inside was a flash drive. Nesbitt inserted it into his computer. The screen flickered. Then a video began to play. It showed a dimly lit room. A man was tied to a chair, bruised, gagged, terrified. It was Blake Moore, off camera. A voice spoke, calm, cold. "You took everything from me, Blake. My wife. My life! My peace!" Blake screamed behind the gag. "You said you were my brother," the voice continued. "But brothers don't sleep with each other's wives." Then the camera moved, revealing the speaker. Mark Evans, alive, angry, and broken. Detectives watched in stunned silence. Mark circled Blake like a predator. "You thought I wouldn't find out? You thought I'd just disappear quietly? You're half right." Then Mark stared directly into the camera. "By the time you see this, I'll be gone for good. Don't bother looking for me. I've already buried my past." The video ended. Klein broke the silence first. Was that a confession or a warning? Nesbitt rubbed his forehead. Both. He's telling us he's not coming back. They tracked the video's metadata. It was uploaded from a public Wi-Fi spot outside Charleston, West Virginia. By the time authorities arrived, the location was empty, but in a nearby dumpster, they found something chilling. Blake's wedding ring, still stained with dried blood. A month later, a body was found deep in an abandoned quarry near the state line. It was decomposed beyond recognition, but DNA confirmed it. Blake Moore, Lisa, was called in for questioning again. Her face was pale, her voice almost gone. "Mrs. Evans," Nesbitt said gently, "we believe your husband killed Blake." Lisa shook her head in disbelief. "No, Mark wouldn't. He's not a killer." Nesbitt slid a folder toward her. Inside, a still image from the video. Mark's face, lit by the flickering light, cold, determined, unforgiving. "He was a husband who broke," Nesbitt said quietly. "And now he's a ghost." Months passed. No one ever saw Mark Evans again. No credit cards. No digital footprint. No trace of his new life. But every year, on the anniversary of his disappearance, Lisa received a single email. No message. No subject line. Just one attachment. A photo of a lake at sunset. The same lake where they'd spent their honeymoon. Narrator's voice softens. Some people vanish to escape their mistakes. Others vanish to make a statement. But Mark Evans, he vanished to make sure his story would never truly end. Soft music fades in, the sound of waves, distant birds. 5 years had passed since the disappearance of Mark Evans. In Sharpsburg, people still whispered his name, part mystery, part legend. Some said he fled the country. Others believed he'd taken his own life after a breakdown, but Lisa Evans knew the truth was something else. Something darker. And she was determined to find it. Scene 1. The email. It was a rainy afternoon when it happened. Lisa was in her small apartment, alone as usual, sorting through old boxes of memories, photos, letters, the wedding ring she no longer wore. Then her laptop chimed. Ding. Another email. No subject, no text, just one photo, like always. But this time, it wasn't the lake. It was a cabin, deep in the woods, fog curling around the roof. And beneath the image, a message appeared for the first time in 5 years. "If you want the truth, come alone." Lisa's hands shook. The sender's name was hidden, but she didn't need to guess. It was him. It was Mark, Scene 2, The Journey. 2 days later, she drove for hours through winding forest roads, guided only by the GPS coordinates from the photo. The deeper she went, the quieter it got. No houses, no cell signal, just the hum of her car and her heartbeat pounding in her ears. Finally, she saw it. The cabin. Old, weathered, silent. She stepped out of the car. "Mark," she called softly. No answer. The door creaked open on its own. Scene 3. The cabin inside. The air smelled of pine and dust. Photos lined the mantel. Pictures of her, of their old home, of their daughter when she was little. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. Then she saw a note on the table, written in Mark's unmistakable handwriting. "Lisa, if you're reading this, it means you finally cared enough to find me. I didn't fake my death to hurt you. I did it because I couldn't live with the truth. Tears welled up as she read on. You broke my heart, but that's not why I left. I found out something Blake didn't even know. He wasn't your only secret. You lied about our daughter, too. Lisa's knees went weak. No, she whispered. That's not true. But the next line froze her completely. I had the DNA tested. She's not mine. Scene 4. The confession. The voice behind her made her spin around. Hello, Lisa. It was him. Older now, bearded, tired, but still Mark. Lisa gasped, covering her mouth. Mark, my God, you're alive. He nodded slowly. Alive, yes, but not the same. Lisa stepped forward. Please, just listen. I can explain. Mark held up a hand. I don't need explanations. I needed peace, and I finally found it. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Why did you do this? Why disappear? Why make me live in hell? His voice broke. Because I did live in hell, Lisa. Every single day since the moment I learned the truth. He looked out the window at the fog-covered trees. I wanted to hate you. I wanted revenge. But in the end, I just wanted to disappear before I became someone I couldn't recognize anymore. Lisa stepped closer, her voice trembling. Then why call me here? Why now? Mark looked at her with sad eyes. Because I forgive you. Scene 5, the farewell. She stared at him, speechless. You forgive me? Yes, he said softly. Holding on to hate almost destroyed me. I needed to let go, to set both of us free. Lisa reached out to touch his hand, but he pulled away gently. There's something else you need to know, he said. I left the rest of the money from our joint account in a trust for our daughter. She deserves a better life, even if she's not mine by blood. Lisa broke down, sobbing. I'm so sorry, Mark. You didn't deserve any of this. Mark smiled faintly. No one ever does. He picked up a small backpack by the door. Goodbye, Lisa. Where will you go? She asked desperately. He turned back one last time. Someplace quiet, where no one knows my name. And then he stepped outside. The fog swallowed him whole. Scene 6, Epilogue. 2 months later, Lisa returned to the cabin with the police. It was empty. No mark, no belongings. Just that same note framed on the wall. But when she stepped outside, she noticed something carved into the wooden doorframe. A single word. Peace. She touched the carving, tears rolling down her face. For the first time in years, she whispered, Goodbye, Mark. Narrator, soft tone. Some stories don't end with justice. Some don't end with answers. They end with silence and the echo of what could have been. Mark Evans didn't die the night he disappeared. He simply stopped being the man he used to be. And sometimes that's the only way to survive. The end.